Good day. My name is Eugene LaBelle. I'm a professional moose hunter guide, and in 35 years of experience in hunting, fishing, and trapping, I have led hunter to more than 100 moose. So at the suggestion of many of the hunter I have guide, I decide to place at your disposal this instruction tape on how to call moose. The taping was made in the fall of 1981, just before the beginning of the traditional hunt for the king of our Northwood, the moose. In order to give you the maximum information, I decided to tape these on the shore of the lake with perfect weather so that the sound and echo would resonate perfectly, rather than in studio. In other words, right now it's 5 o'clock in the morning and the early morning mists are still rising. To begin with, when you arrive about 100 feet from the spot where you've chosen to call from, as early as possible in the morning, walk so that you break some twigs. In addition, you should break branch at least 2 inches thick, jumping on them with both feet if necessary. If you are on the shore of a lake, walk a few feet in the water for about 30 seconds. Now, cup your hand and make 2 soft female calls, like this. Now, try imitating the sound of a bull moose in search of companionship, like these. Or the call of a lone calf, like these. Vary your call, imitating the female, the male, or the calf, at all interval of about 10 minutes. During these 10-minute pause, Listen carefully for sound of moose. To increase your odds, break some twig from time to time and also make noise in the water. It's important to call softly at the beginning, because if you start calling too loud, you risk scaring off the moose, which could possibly be very close. This is especially important if your call hasn't been perfect yet. Repeat the sequences of all calls for a period of about 1 hour. After all these attempts, if you haven't seen any sign of moose, either through an answer or perhaps the sound of breaking branches, or maybe even hearing the moose walk in the water or snorting, it's time to use the cone-shaped moose call in order to get the attention of moose which might be further away. Using the call, this time imitate the female once or twice, but in a way that is more drawn out than at the beginning and much louder. Now, listen carefully for a period of about 15 minutes. During this time, you should break some twig and splash around in the water. If you still get no sign of the presence of moose, try something different by imitating the call of the female, which is calling her calf. Wait a few minutes and imitating the answer of the calf twice. Keep in mind the call of the female always has the nasal sound, and that the male use the sound of the letter O, which come from the stomach and the throat, and the calf use a nasal ah. You can produce an excellent imitation of the sound of a moose walking in water with your moose call. Simply block the mouthpiece of the call with the palm of your hand and push the white part of the call into the water. You can also use your paddle to splash the water to make the sound of a moose when they are in the water up to their chest and feeding on aquatic vegetation. Listen carefully for a period of about 15 minutes and then start over again. If after about an hour you haven't gotten any answer in the form of a call or breaking branches or any other, then you can call again, but louder this time. Again using your moose call in order to get the attention of moose that might be even further away. From experiences, I know that if your relatively weak ears can hear moose at 2 or 3 miles away, imagine that moose with their sensitive hearing can pick up. First of all, imitated the prolonged call of the female, longer than at the beginning when you first approach your hideout. without forgetting that the female use a nasal "oh". And now turn in another direction and imitate the call of the male once or twice to tell all the moose in the area that there's a bull interested in the cow. Don't worry about using the cow call exactly twice and the bull call exactly 3 times. It's preferable that you vary the quantities of calls. After the call of the bull, you should wait and listen for a period about 5 to 10 minutes. During these listening periods, it's a good idea to imitate the sound of the female urinating in the water. Fill the call with water and place your thumb over the mouthpiece to hold the water inside. Raise the call 3 or 4 feet and slowly let the water run out through the mouthpiece. Again, thrash around in the water sufficiently to imitate the moose. Moving about, or make the sound of a moose walking with your moose call. It is very important to listen carefully to capture the slightest sign of the presence of the moose. From time to time, during your listening period, it's a good idea to imitate the deep nasal snort most animals make when they test the vagrant breeze. Imitate this snort with your moose call. There's also another way to approach choosing hunting spot, whether by water or along a lumbering road, by making the necessary noise in water or with the branches along the shoreline in this area. You can't imitate a solitary bull which calls from time to time in the hope of getting attention of a cow hears the sound of the bull. This call, when heard from a considerable distance, sounds something like a howl. Sometimes young male between 2 and 4 years old answer like these. Other time, the moose call are similar to horse. Some people will think that these calls sound a lot like the whine of a bench saw. There's another call which I shouldn't forget to mention. which we can call the cry of alarms. This call is used by both moose and deer to warn others of danger which they have spot. This call, of course, should never be used by hunters, because it would reduce your chance substantially during the day. If you should hear this call of alarm, it's because you've been spotted by a moose and he's warning others of your presence. This could have happened through your scent, which was carried by the breeze. Or by the sound which are not familiar in the forest. For example, the sound of cartridge clinking against each other in your pocket, or pan banging together, even banging the side of the boat, is enough to alarm moose sometime. After errors of these kind, either by you or your companion, it would be preferable to stop calling altogether on that day, rather than make the moose suspicious for the rest of your hunt in that sector. This call of alarm sounds like a vigorous snort. Considering the volume of a moose lung, it would be necessary to use an amplifier to imitate exactly these calls. To familiarize yourself with these calls, here's what it sounds like. And moose use it often during darkness. Spurred by their instinct for survival, moose in the wild have developed a much more elaborated vocabulary than moose which live in captivities in zoo. If you understand all the sound effect necessary for the imitation of moose call, don't hesitate to repeat your call as advised on this tape. Of course, if you haven't been able to imitate the call faithfully, it's a good idea not to call too often, because this would scare away the moose rather than bring them closer. The best time of the day to call are from daybreak until about 10 o'clock in the morning, and again after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right through till dark. Be patient, because in general, the first and the last half hour of the day are the most productive. Generally, from about 9 or 10 in the morning till about 3 or 4 in the afternoon, you may as well go on, catch up on some much needed sleep. Keep in mind that moose are a nocturnal animal which become active at the end of the day and continue through the dawn. This might be a development caused by our age of increasing noise pollution, which has forced moose to change their pattern of activity. It could very well be that moose were once as active during the day as they now are at night. Whatever the reason, remain as quiet as possible during the day in order to avoid arousing their curiosity. Another error you should avoid is to call here and there in your hunting territory. In other words, near your camps, in the mountain, near the water, etc., etc. Always call from the same sector at your hideout. And don't forget that each of these spots you have left your odor, which you carry with you constantly. If by chance a moose come to one of these calling sites and stumble on your scent, the result is that the moose become much more wary. The moose has memorized the tone of your call, and just like you memorize the bark of a dog, and after, you're gonna make the relation between that tone of call and your human odor. Is then unlikely to come to your call. These errors are generally caused by impatience. You should choose your call site strategically as possible, and then stay only in these areas to make your call. The spot should be chosen according to the presence of moose sign, such as track, bruise, dropping, etc. In addition, remember that moose are creator of habits, and then to follow stream running in and out of bodies of water. The topographies around your call site might also make it advantageous to use an additional attractor, such as urine of moose or the urine of a mare while in heat. The value of mare urines is self-evident. Whole lumberjack and farmer or hills will tell you that in an area where moose are common, just how much these animals are interested in mating with horses. And it's even dangerous to use a mare in heat to work in the forest in the fall, the period which coincides with the mating season of moose. All right now, many hunters, and myself included, will tell you about hunts during which they were able to kill a moose at high noon and even right near the camps or car. But this is the exception inherent in every rule. To assure yourself of consistent success, it's best to follow the information on this cassette, as well as in my book, keeping in mind that experiences is nothing more than an accumulation of error. You will understand easily that you will save yourself the cost of these errors by following my advice. If you would like to know more about moose, I suggest you pick up a copy of my book entitled Guide for Moose Hunter. You may not find it a very thick book at this first glance, but I prefer to condense everything in order to make it easier to understand, and that's to the reader's advantage. I am not just telling you this in order to publicize my book, but rather as a continuity. Moose can be attracted by imitating their call, but another way just as important is to attract them by odor, something we've already talked about on this tape. These can be done by using the urine of a mare in heat. In order to use this urine properly, soak a piece of dry wood in the liquid or a rag, and then suspend it 6 or 7 feet above the ground in a spot where you think the moose might come. In other words, within your field of vision from your hunting spot. The distance from your hunting spot to the urine site can vary between 50 to several hundred feet. As an additional advantage, when you get to your hunting spot, put a few drops of nature odor on a tree above your head in order to mask the human odor you carry. This is especially important when it's windy. This nature odor is good for any kind of hunting. As a general rule, moose answer the call from about the end of August to the beginning of November. But I have also had moose of both sexes and even calves in the spring, summer, and sometime in winter when I'm trapping, coming in my call. And he even answer. I see moose and I talk to them. Now, as promised in my publicity, I show you how to call wolves. Experience has proven to me that it is as easy to call wolves as it is to call moose. Like all living things, wolves communicate through an intricate language. In addition, it is in the interest of nature, balance, and conservation to harvest predator, considering that we harvest their prey. It is to our advantage to use nature odor to hunt wolves, keeping in mind their extraordinary sense of smell. Furthermore, this masking agent for human scent is useful in all kind of hunting, excluding feathered game. To begin with, like in all other kinds of hunting, we must first find the presence of wolves, either by their tracks or by their droppings, and perhaps in the area where they've been heard howling. If the dropping or tracks are very fresh, your chances are much better. The most productive hours are the same as for the moose, and the trick is to imitate the wolf family of wolves. But as an additional advantage, also imitate the cry of a moose calf, which is the easiest prey for wolves. In addition, for the mature wolf, a moose calf is the weakest object they can find to train their cubs, which by the fall are about 3/4 full grown. Practice this call in order to get the most faithful tone. When you're convinced that you've got it right, just like for the moose calling, imitated the call of the adult wolf and the young one, as if there was a whole family of wolves. Hunting down a moose call, and from time to time also imitated the call of a distressed calf for a realistic effect. Your biggest advantage is to be patient. Here now it's how to call wolves, and you'll hear for yourself the success I have had by listening to them answer. At the time I got these answers from the wolves, I was accompanied by a very reliable witness, none other than the well-known biologist Robert. The best weather for calling wolves is during periods of a full moon or during period of a light rain or mist, and preferably without any wind. If you hear them answer, be patient. Like moose, wolves will sometimes take several hours to get where you are. I found that it's easy to call wolves at any time of year, contrary to moose, which seems to be interested in call only during their rooting period. If you're interested in finding some of the other products mentioned on these cassettes, I suggest you visit the Trapper's Hideout Inc. outlet in your area. In case you can't find the product in the store, you can order them directly by writing to the Trapper's Hideout Inc. RR2 Gravel, Fermeneuve, Quebec. P.O. Box 327. Postal code J like Joe, O like order, W like Wayne, dash 1, C like call, O like Oscar. Include cash, money order or certified check, and add 9% tax if you're a Quebec resident, but for whole Canada, a 10% for postage and handling should be had.